Welcome to Secured with Dr. KJ, the podcast where we break down cybersecurity, the technologies driving it, and the companies shaping our digital future. I'm your host, Dr. Kenneth Johnson, cybersecurity leader, technologist, and strategist. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT concern, it's a business imperative. Each episode, we'll explore key topics like cloud security, zero trust, AI-driven defense, and more. We'll assess how tech leaders are adapting, where they need to improve, and what it takes to stay ahead of evolving threats. This podcast features expert insights from security professionals, industry leaders, and technologists, offering real-world solutions to modern cybersecurity challenges. Whether you're a business leader, security expert, or just curious about how technology keeps us safe, this podcast is for you. Subscribe and join the conversation as we explore cybersecurity's biggest challenges, securing tomorrow, one episode at a time. Welcome to this week's episode of Secured with Dr. KJ. We sit down with Bryce Carter, the Chief Information Security Officer for the City of Arlington, Texas, a city powered by critical infrastructure at the heart of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. With nearly 2 decades of executive leadership spanning government, aviation, healthcare, utilities, and tech services, Bryce is no stranger to high-stakes security. He's a 2025 Orby Award winner, a top 100 global CISO, and a driving force behind urban cyber resilience. Beyond the boardroom, Bryce serves on multiple advisory boards, mentors the next generation of cyber leaders, and recharges by getting outdoors. In this episode titled Smart Cities, Secure Cities, Urban Infrastructure Protection, we dive into what it really takes to protect a connected city in an always-on world. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, looking forward to this conversation. And so let's just dive right into the first question. So as urban environments become more digitized, what are the biggest cybersecurity risks cities today are facing, and how are we preparing for them?
So when you think about a city, or at least when I think about a city, it's really a lot of different things. So when people ask me what kind of industry I work in or what industry I work in, I usually reply back all of them, because it's really like a bunch of different subsidiaries, right? And protecting that is very complex because it's not like you're trying to deliver one product. You have a lot of critical infrastructure. Depending on your city, you may own power, you may own utilities, you may own water, you definitely own public safety in nearly all of them, which is also critical. You own 911. You own a lot of stuff, and it's a big responsibility. So protecting that gets more and more complex as technology transforms. So I think what we're probably going to continue to see in the future is more targeted things that target our critical infrastructure, more targeted attacks on our critical infrastructure. I think we're also going to see more things leveraging generative AI. So right now, while the bad guys generally have unlimited time, in the future, those same bad actors are going to be able to leverage AI to do it a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we're all going to have challenges with, not just specific to government, but I think it's really going to be maybe more pronounced at government, is deepfakes. So kind of impersonations of you, that's a huge challenge. And it's, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people are getting trustworthy information. And how are you going to be able to trust that if you can't decipher between what's real?
Yeah, I totally agree.
So I think there's going to be AI attacks on AI, right? So cities are going to be leveraging a lot more AI, and then there's going to be AI trying to attack the AI. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's the end of the world right there. I'm not entirely sure. And then a lot of attacks on our operational technology, the IoT. So that would be things that run all of your critical infrastructure. So your water utilities, your electricity. Those type of things are big targets for not just folks that are just international criminals, but the nation states that have a huge amount of resources and time to dedicate towards attacking and causing disruption.
Yeah, no, when you think about the deepfakes, I was using a platform that was using AI voice for podcasting, and I was
Hmm.
like, wow, I was like, this is pretty incredible. And one thing that was really cool is I was able to then translate my voice. I don't know Spanish, I don't know Portuguese, I don't know, any other language except for the basic, hey, I want to get around, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it was able to just take my voice and fluently speak that new language. So
Hmm.
when you think about deep fakes and it sounded just like me as I was speaking English or something, and I was like, wow. I was like, okay, we're definitely at a time where we have to think differently. One, not only about security, but just everything that we do in general, right? So it's like the new social security number, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think the challenge is that's not just a change in how we do things technically. Security's never been that, but it definitely isn't now because there's really not much you can do technically to change that. I
No,
mean, it's getting so crystal clear that you can't decipher between the two. There's not a lot of great technology that will be able to decipher between the two, and even then, it's just a huge challenge. So I
right,
think that the education component, but then it's like, well, okay, we educate them, but you still can't tell the difference, right? Like
right.
all I'm telling you is you still can't tell the difference between the two, and is that useful information? Probably not.
No,
So I think it's probably going to come back to you'll see a big surge in people coming back to face
and
because of that.
that's always good, right? I mean, it's nice when I'm able to shake a hand and have a real conversation with somebody, and I guess that you verify first, right? You verify in person now, so
Yeah,
that's a good thing,
yeah, and I know the remote work thing is very, it's a hot topic, right?
right?
But I could see this transformation that we're seeing in just
Mhm.
kind of the deepfakes thing. And I shouldn't just call it deepfake because there are legitimate use cases for,
Right,
replicating your voice,
Mhm.
or creating your own avatar kind of thing.
Right,
That said, because it's so hard to trust that now that it's become so real, I think that could be a push towards getting more people back into the office
yeah,
just for trust by itself. And it's going to be an interesting shift in dynamic, but outside of just office, right? What we're most concerned about at a city level is, how do we make sure that, we're getting the most trust, they can trust the information that comes out of the city. And while we can do that part, what we can't do is everything else that might not be real, that might be posted by third parties, those type of things. So it's a hard problem to solve, and then obviously there's the whole overarching cybersecurity component there too, where
right.
they might use that to try to do perform different attacks against you, do social engineering to try to get into your systems and steal data, or maybe even try to get into your critical infrastructure and cause disruption. So
Which is
it's going to be a huge problem, and I think it already is.
Yeah. I mean, it's the new zero trust framework, right? We're going to call it the human trust framework, right? So, look, we have coined it here on Secured with Dr. KJ.
There you
Okay.
go,
We have
done,
coined it here,
done,
the human
trademark.
trust framework. So between me and you, Bryce, we're on to something here.
There you go.
No. So when we look at a smart infrastructure, think about traffic control, the energy grids, you know, and it relies really on interconnected systems, right? How can cities build resilience into these digital ecosystems?
Yeah, so that's a hard question, and I think it's changing every day because when I
Hmm.
come in tomorrow, there's new tech. There's new tech. There's a different approach, and they aren't always thinking about security at the start, right? And then that's generally like the folks that are either one trying to sell it to us or
Great.
that are talking about it, and then we get interested in potentially doing it here because there's some legitimate business value or value to our community that it can provide. So I always try to think of it kind of from a business perspective, and at the end of the day, it's really good. It's really good risk management. I think, for example, at the city, we rely a lot on third party systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be like cloud systems, things like that. Things we don't necessarily have full control over. We have some shared responsibility between them. And what that comes down to is really good third party risk management. And nobody has a silver bullet for that. They
Right.
just don't. They just don't. There's no certification that's going to be a silver bullet. It's a hard problem to solve because they're also dealing with the fact that technology changes every day, and they're also in a very hyper competitive environment where we want people to develop things really quickly, which doesn't always mean that security is going to be top priority, but we have to figure out a way to make security kind of the top priority in the sense that when you're doing development, you're creating these things,
Right.
it has to be in there kind of by design. And I think
100%.
that was one of the first principles that I was going to talk about, was just kind of doing, what does it mean to do security by design, right? It's a lot of things. It's your culture, it's your funding, it's the the segmentation you put in between networks, it's the way you do authentication, your passwords, it's a lot of different things. It's the upskilling your workforce so that they understand what it means, so that culture can kind of be there, right? That they understand what it means to do security. It's that proactive risk management that I kind of talked about. It's doing tabletop exercises so you can create resiliency, right? And that's not just doing your IT tabletops; it's doing your executive tabletops. So, because honestly, that's the hardest part of any incident, right? Is that piece. So, and then it's sharing threat intelligence, because at the end of the day, they still have unlimited time. They have unlimited time. We'll never 100% get 100%, but if we don't get close, then obviously it's a losing game.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think when we look from the attacker standpoint, and this is one thing I heard a couple of days ago, they have families too. And it's the human side, right? It's the human side. So I know it's a very controversial, very much statement, right? But because they're coming after, as we're perceived, the good guys, right? They're coming, but they have families too. And when you hear that, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel as a CISO, right? Understanding and knowing that you're protecting your infrastructure for all good of the citizens within your county and district and so forth, right? But then on the other side, somebody's trying to get in to support their family, whether we think that's morally right or wrong.
That's an interesting point there, KJ. I did not expect to go down that rabbit hole. So I think it's not much different than you come and stealing a car in the city.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a family, but that doesn't make it morally correct. That doesn't make it ethically sound. And that's why we have laws. And because we decide what, and not to get too, in depth on that front, but that I think we have laws for a reason, because we as society have decided that this is not morally acceptable. To be able to, if you think about what some of the impacts could be when you have like a cybersecurity incident inside a city that has utilities and everything else, right? You could delay public safety, right? You could potentially, if you don't have good contingency plans and you haven't practiced them and you don't have really good resiliency, you could potentially impact the flow of water, which then could, lead to a loss of life. So I don't have much remorse for the folks, or compassion for the folks that are attacking our critical infrastructure, because really you're potentially harming the human life.
Yep, I agree.
And any life for that matter. So, I mean, I think that's really the big thing, and that's the sort of why we have laws. And I just don't see it as something much different.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, at the end of the day, there are laws, there are rules. I was in the military, so I totally understand, hey, there's a hierarchy we have to follow. We have to make sure things are right to move forward. And you adhere, or if you don't, then there are consequences of those actions. Just like growing up when your parents said, hey, if you go into the cookie jar and you're not supposed to, here are the consequences that go along with it. So
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard topic, especially once you start talking about like AI and stuff like that. I mean, it's like who's actually accountable when AI is attacking you, right? Well, we could get down that rabbit hole, and it'll get weird really fast.
Well, let's go down the AI rabbit hole here for a second. Let's go down that one.
You're digging.
So with AI and data analytics really kind of powering decision making in smart cities, right? How do we ensure that these technologies are secure, ethical, and unbiased?
So also a hard question, because you think about AI, it's always biased. Well, not always biased, but I mean, there's always some level of bias in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, but likewise, if it's learned off of data that we created, we're always somewhat biased too. So I think there's some acceptable kind of standards in there, right? But mm-hmm. I think it's making sure you have a good model for what you want that to look like in your city, and making sure you commit to it and figure out ways to implement it, that is the hardest part of that. Because again, as I kind of mentioned, and this is true of most cities, we don't typically create our own generative AI models. I mean, we don't have a bunch of NVIDIA GPUs pumping in our back data center. As much as I wish we had that level of funding, right? Like that's not a thing. And I don't know if I would wanted that to be a thing. That's not the business we're in. Right. But so people tend to give us systems that, are already kind of pre-trained, and then we've got to figure out some way to apply the principles that we've decided is acceptable to those systems.
Right.
And that is not easy to do because they're pre-made, right? They're done. Like the models are already kind of created. But that said, when you go and procure these things, you've got some things that you can put in there in terms of you could ask them to do tests for bias, and you could ask them to give you data on that. It'd be very hard for them to do. They could. But then, data governance and privacy, that's another kind of component of it. You've got to have really good data governance. Never seen a city that had good data governance. Just not a single one. Just because we're so large. We're so large, so dispersed, and they're different functions at the end of the day.
That's true.
And then I think the other piece is just the explainability of how decisions are made with AI. Okay. That's a really hard nut to crack. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of these AI models popping up, but it's always interesting because you see like OpenAI, they have to do studies on their own AI model to understand how it works. And they made it. I was like, so when you're like, well, we want it to be explainable, I was like, no one can explain them. That's why we're testing them, right? Like,
exactly.
It's getting so complex that no one can possibly explain how it got to an answer. But there are some models that can do some of that. That's not entirely there yet, but there's some real challenges with trying to regulate how you use AI.
No, I love that. And so when you think about AI is here. We're in the middle of the revolution, right? But as you forward think, quantum technology, how is that something you look to implement within your city to allow, your constituents to, let's say, make money off of that, right? And grow. So would love to hear your thoughts there.
Wow, that's a question. I don't know if we've gotten in at the government level. I mean, we're thinking about quantum from an encryption perspective and keeping our data safe, keeping communications safe, those type of things, and making sure our infrastructure stays safe and secure, and the communications between those stay secure. I don't think we've really thought about it. Other use cases for quantum. I think we're still trying to figure out AI use cases in government, let alone quantum. But I think the two things are going to intersect at some point. Now, I'm not a professor of quantum. It's quite complex, but I understand it enough that, we obviously, every government should eventually have a plan, because it's just a matter of time. They're not there yet, but it's a matter of time before you'll have some quantum computers. And that's really challenging too, because when you think about what they can capture data today, in theory, and when quantum comes along, they can theoretically decrypt that data. So there's some sort of challenges there, but at the end of the day, I always like to think that I'm a kind of business first kind of CISO, and that sounds weird from a government perspective, but maybe I'm community first CISO. I don't know, whatever you want to call me, right? I'm very much ingrained into how we operate as an organization, what our priorities are, and I try to make sure security, the technology we utilize in the city aligns with that and really helps enable that mission. I don't know if there's anything quantum's enabling right now. It's going to be really interesting when it gets there. There are some cities kind of experimenting like with their own cryptocurrency and stuff like that. I don't know if a city should have its own crypto. I don't know. I can't really weigh in on that. I think there yet, huh? Out there already. I don't know how many. I think there's over 200. I think so.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think we need to create an own individual, because there's a lot of cities in the U.S. I mean, we're top 50, but still, should we have 50 crypto coins for cities, and would that actually be a good source of value? Probably not. But anyways, I think I just went into a side tangent.
That's okay. It's all good.
I think it's really where we're more concerned about it right now is kind of from the encryption perspective. And there are some new, encryption technologies that are hopefully more resilient.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see if that, when it comes, if that holds up.
No, I'm looking forward to it as well. It's just we have to stay on the what we say frontier, right? Stay forward thinking, keep it moving, and just learn as much as you can. So I would love to get your final thoughts for the audience here and what you're thinking and what's next for you.
What's next for me? Oh, man. So Bryce always has a lot of things going on, lots and lots of things going on. But I think, you should expect your cities to better serve you at the end of the day. And my job is to make all of that crazy smart infrastructure that you eventually do take for granted because it is just ingrained into how you operate, and keeping it secure so that way it doesn't impact your lives. And it helps improve quality of life. It helps improve the value of your homes. It helps improve the quality of your economy. So that's where I kind of see my mission, and my hope is when done right and security's done right, it doesn't impair that, but really helps enable it. And I think that's maybe some of what you see, here at Arlington, because we're just so forward thinking. So if you come visit Arlington, just know there's a lot going on behind the scenes to help keep that experience secure and help you stay safe here in Arlington and enjoy your experience while you're here.
No, Bryce, brilliant. Truly a lot of great gems that you drop for everyone to listen to. And I look forward to having you back on the show so we can have another deep discussion, and I can throw a few other questions at you that
I'm down with any more curveballs you got for me, KJ. Just throw them at me.
But no, I truly appreciate you, and look forward to having you again for sure.
Sounds good. It's nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on another insightful episode of Secured with Dr. KJ. Huge thanks to Bryce Carter, Chief Information Security Officer for the City of Arlington, Texas, for joining us and sharing his deep expertise on what it takes to secure the complex digital ecosystem that powers our cities. From ransomware threats to AI-driven resilience, Bryce reminded us that smart infrastructure demands smart strategy. And at the core of that is trust, innovation, and relentless commitment to protecting the public good. If you're ever in Arlington, know that a lot of thought and care is happening behind the scenes to keep your experiences safe, seamless, and secure. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, securing tomorrow, one episode at a time.